Good evening. I'm Joan Harris. I'm a Township Committee person, a Democrat in Bernards Township, and it's my honor and pleasure tonight to introduce to you the Democratic candidates, Sophia Chadda and Jon Sandler.
Thank you, Joan.
Hello. How are you guys?
Hey.
So I'm running for Township Committee because I'd like to see local government that is more transparent, inclusive, and innovative. Our taxes keep increasing while our property values are decreasing. And I want to ensure that Bernards Township remains the premier place where people want to live, work, shop, and bring their businesses. Last year, I met with over 100 businesses and proposed creating an economic development commission to stimulate our economy and preserve our property values. As a 21-year resident, a wife, a mother, a periodontist, a small business owner, and a former professor at Rutgers, I am uniquely qualified for the Township Committee. I've held numerous leadership positions. I'm the past president of the Tri-County Dental Society, past vice president of the New Jersey Society of Periodontists. I'm a former member of the Bernards Township Board of Health and a graduate of Leadership Somerset. In addition to that, I've been active in local groups like Basking Ridge Helping Basking Ridge. I've been active in my children's schools as class mom numerous times, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of a nonprofit that provides free education and medical care to impoverished children overseas. My goal is to reduce our taxes, and the best way to do that is to revitalize our business districts. That way, we can increase our ratables, which will broaden our tax base and decrease the tax burden on the individual homeowner. During this pandemic, our small businesses have been suffering, myself included. We need to be supportive of our small businesses, and we need someone who understands science and small business. In addition to that, I am running because we need different voices and diverse voices. And that has never been so evident as in the last several weeks with the murder of George Floyd and the ensuing protests. It has become evident that we need leaders who have empathy, something that is sorely lacking in many of our elected officials. A growing number of Americans are rejecting Trump's version of America, including top military personnel. And remember, local leadership is directly related to national leadership. We need leaders who will promote our American values of liberty, justice, equality, diversity, unity, self-governance, and individualism. My running mate, Jon Sandler, is a very skilled attorney who will help us navigate through many of the issues that we have faced as a community in the past. With his legal expertise and my science and business acumen, we make a formidable team. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow, but I guess I don't have a choice. My name is Jon Sandler, and I am absolutely thrilled to be running for Bernards Township Committee along with Sophia Chadda. I'm also excited for this first of what will probably be several town hall style events. During these uncertain times and times where we can't be together physically, it's very important to Sophia and I that we be able to connect with the residents of Bernards Township. And so we look forward to continuing these interactive sessions with you where you'll have an opportunity to hear from us and learn about what our platforms are. Now, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a 5-year resident of Bernards Township. My wife and I moved here when our oldest daughter, Avery, was about to start kindergarten. And we moved to Bernards Township probably for the same reasons many of you did. It's a beautiful town with excellent schools. I have 2 daughters, 10 years old and 8 years old, and I'm thrilled to say that we've got a baby on the way due in September. And the reason I bring that up is because I intend to make Bernards Township the best place it can be for many, many years to come. Now, I love Bernards Township, and I've been proud to be a resident here since the day I moved in. But sadly, I've noticed that over the past few years, Bernards Township has suffered from ineffective leadership. And I'd like to cite a few examples of that ineffective leadership, which has manifested itself over and over again. This ineffective leadership has created costly and unnecessary litigation. And this litigation hasn't cost us money just in the pocketbook, but sadly, this litigation has created embarrassment for Bernards Township and has splashed our name across the news, both on the local and the national level. This ineffective leadership has caused us to get involved in bad deals with developers, which has created unnecessary overdevelopment, which will be affecting our township for many, many years to come. This ineffective leadership has left our networks vulnerable, most recently to a cyber attack that has required the FBI to get involved. And sadly, just 2 days ago at our township committee meeting, in the face of what appeared to be unanimous citizen support for the creation of a committee focused on diversity, the majority of the township committee did not support the creation of that committee, despite the fact that virtually every resident that was there and every resident that submitted comments were roundly in favor of the creation of such a committee. All of these issues could have and should have been avoided with effective, forward-thinking leadership. Bernards Township needs leaders that are diligent and proactive, that are problem solvers, that are constantly looking for the best results and the best outcomes. I've spent the past 13 years as an attorney helping my clients solve problems in a creative and thoughtful way. Sophia and I will bring that same type of diligence to the Township Committee, where we will make sure that the interests of Bernards Township are paramount in every decision we make. And so I look forward to answering some questions from you tonight. And now we have the opportunity to chat with Joan Harris a little bit more.
Well done, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it was a very interesting township committee meeting. As you know, we had a public work session with a draft resolution to be worked on. Wasn't perfect. We were looking for public input so that we can craft a good committee. I was disappointed that my colleagues, majority of them, were not in support of the committee and wanted to do something else. I think a committee gives the form and the function and the dedication of or commitment of our town to the values that we hold important. So as hopefully you're going to learn next year, sometimes you just have to keep pushing, and that's what I intend to do. So let me hear your thoughts.
So as I mentioned, I was there and I spoke in support of the resolution. And it was just surprising to me that it seemed as though, like I said, the support was virtually unanimous. And while the 3 committee members who didn't support the resolution did talk about potentially doing something else as an alternative to a committee, there did not seem to be any real meaningful input or a plan that was willing to be put in place. And the reality is, the formalities of a committee show the dedication of the purpose of the committee. And in this situation, that's diversity. And it's important that we as a township, with a population that is becoming more diverse, show how serious we are about promoting diversity and continuing the dialogue. And quite frankly, it was disappointing for me that some alternate sort of less formal method was suggested, when I think that the unanimous vote or the unanimous consent of the township residents was that a committee itself be formed.
And I might add that I think the thing that struck out to me the most was the fact that the 3 other committee members were completely tone deaf in that they did not feel the pain of the people that had come up and spoken out about and shared their thoughts and feelings. They did not get it. And that was most striking to me.
Yeah.
So there's work to be done, and we'll just keep pressing forward. And, come join me.
Hopefully.
And we'd get that passed quick, right?
Hopefully. Well, thank you very much, Joan.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Good luck to both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And now let's move on, John. Let's move on to our first question.
Sounds great.
So the question is, what do you think of our downtown and other retail areas such as Liberty Corner, Hills, Highland, and Dewy Meadows? And what specifically would you like to improve about them? Well, I'll just start off by saying that last year I visited all the businesses in Bernards Township, and I will say that depending on the area, they had different complaints. So, for example, Liberty Corner had issues with not getting their mail. They had issues with needing and wanting crosswalks, but those were not, they were not able to get the crosswalks. The Hills Highland had issues with the parking lot, which was in pretty bad shape. Since then, it's been repaved. The post office had issues with the parking lot as well. Tenants had issues about the landlord, which I'm not sure that's something that the Township Committee could do anything about because that's a landlord-tenant issue. And then Dewy Meadow, the tenants there were upset about the loss of the A&P and the new complex that is being built there that pretty much was done without anyone's consent in the dark of night without much public input. So those were the major issues.
Thank you, Sophia. I'll just jump in for a minute and say that it was really great to see you take the initiative last year during your campaign to go and visit the small businesses and make the success of the small businesses a priority in your platform. And that's exactly what I plan to do. I plan to continue and follow your lead in that. I think that Bernards Township really needs to take an initiative in investing in the success both of the tenants and the businesses we have in town, as well as making Bernards Township the kind of place that other small businesses, be it retail or restaurant, want to come join us. Bernards Township is a lovely, quaint town that should be attracting people that come to Bernards Township that want to spend their dollars here. And there are ways to do that. I mean, we need look no further than our neighbors, Bernardsville, that are exploring a special improvement district and potentially hiring a downtown manager who works for the township, whose job it is specifically to liaise with the small businesses and make sure that their concerns and their issues are addressed. And even more importantly, perhaps, to work with local realtors and see what we can do to help bring other businesses into town. And so these are the sorts of initiatives that I look forward to bringing to the Township Committee, that I look forward to talking to residents about as we continue this campaign. And Sophia really did such a wonderful job setting the stage for that last year.
Thank you, John. Okay, our next question. Go ahead, John.
What will you do to help control the ever-increasing property taxes paid by the homeowners of Bernards Township? I'm chuckling a little bit, not at all because it's funny, but because it sounds like we hear this every single day. And I think that dovetails nicely into the last question that was there. And the reality is Bernards Township needs a certain amount of dollars to run and operate. And I think we all know that, and I think we all respect that. And there are a few things we can do to help control property taxes. First things first is control how much money we spend. But the second thing we can do is try and increase our revenue through other sources other than on the back of the taxpayer. And in my opinion, you do that by increasing ratables and by bringing small businesses into town. And you take those initiatives to bring businesses here and to have people, both residents in Bernards Township and folks outside of Bernards Township, who want to come to these small businesses and spend their money here. In my opinion, that's how you lower property taxes in Bernards Township.
John, I would agree with you 100%. Last year, when I met with businesses, I proposed developing an economic development commission to come up with a strategic plan with immediate, short-term, and long-term goals that would bring all players to the table, everyone from small businesses to our big businesses like Verizon, to have a stake and to really also promote a shop local social media campaign, to do other things like have more people come into our downtown for example, a restaurant week, outdoor dining, outdoor shopping, things of that nature. So basically the bottom line is we need to revitalize our business district. Like you said, increase our ratables to decrease the burden on the individual homeowner.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to do about the traffic bottleneck that happens in our town every morning on the roads near the high school? Well, I will say that when I'm driving to work on Stonehouse Road, I often am backed up on Stonehouse Road in the morning because of all the cars that are trying to get to the high school. And I know there's also congestion on Lake Road as well. And this has been an issue that has been around for quite a while. I think there are different ways to approach it. One way would be to try to potentially open up the road between the police department. There's a gravel road between the police department and the high school where the field is. There's a gravel road that perhaps could be opened up and could be a conduit to ease the traffic that gets bottled up, bottleneck traffic on the major roads. That would be a one-way street, of course. The other issue is to work with the Board of Ed and to think about, they had proposed delaying start times, perhaps to look into that, or to have a staggered start. That's another option.
Yeah, this really is a challenge. And I live off Lake Road, and I can say from experience that if I have to get from Lake Road anywhere downtown at any time, at the 7:20 to 7:40 time period, it's just not going to happen. I think there are a lot of challenges associated with this. One of which I think Sophia mentioned is that I know Findlay is a county road. So, in terms of doing any work to that road specifically, I think we would have to work with the county to try and figure that out. But there are things you can do. Sophia talked about looking at additional methods of ingress to the high school, additional roads perhaps, talking about how we can impact traffic patterns. We'd have to work with the Board of Education to talk about busing schedules and things like that. But I think the reality is this discussion needs to happen. And while we may not have concrete answers right now, we would be committed to seeing what we could do to work with the various players that have input and have decision-making authority to figure out what we can do, because that is a real issue for a lot of residents in Bernards Township. Next question. How have you proven your involvement and commitment to our community, and how has this involvement prepared you to serve on our township committee? Like I said in my little intro, I've loved Bernards Township since the day I got here. My involvement locally in Bernards Township has mostly involved my kids. I've coached them both in softball and basketball. I'm involved in the YMCA Adventure Guides program, where I was their circle navigator for 2 years. I also sit on the board of directors for my synagogue in Warren at Temple Har Shalom. And for a long time, since I lived in Bernards Township, I wanted to get involved more in more community committees and in more local governance. But I think one of the problems that I've noticed with Bernards Township and the leadership that has been in power for a long time is that if you're an outsider or a newcomer or not of the correct political party, no one's going to pay you any mind. And so despite the fact that on several instances I submitted, the tap the talent form right to the clerk and to the township, I wasn't able to get much headway there. And I think that that's part of the message that Sophia and I are trying to send, is that as a township to move forward, we want to promote new, diverse voices in all aspects of the community. And I think that will be a focus of both Sophia and myself going forward.
Thanks, John. So as for myself, I think just having lived here for 21 years shows a commitment. This is the place where I've chosen to raise my family. In addition to that, after I moved 17 years ago, I started my business here. And I think that in itself shows a huge commitment, because that is my livelihood. And I chose Bernards Township as the place where I would earn my livelihood. So in addition to that, I have in the past been a member of the Board of Health. I am also, I've been trained to be a member of the Bernards Township Domestic Violence Response Team. I've been involved in local groups like Basking Ridge, Helping Basking Ridge. And in addition to being class mom numerous times for my children's schools, I've also, during the pandemic, was able to acquire PPE that we were able to then distribute to Fellowship Village, Oak Ridge, Basking Ridge Firehouse. So those are some of the things that we've done. Okay, how do you propose we revitalize our retail areas and still maintain the rural historic character that has drawn so many residents to our town? That's a great question because so many people love that characteristic of our town. Yet, if we revitalize, we do need to bring in some businesses. So for that, I would propose perhaps bringing in businesses that have some name recognition, that are not big box, obviously not big box retailers, but something that people will be attracted to. For example, just to throw out names, a store like Anthropology is very popular. It has name recognition. People do like it, but it's not going to attract hordes and throngs of people downtown. We could also do another coffee shop or two, a variety store, for example. So those are some of the things that we can do.
Right, I agree completely. I think that, you know, the Liberty Corner section of Basking Ridge, downtown area, and Findlay certainly has a nice charm to it. And just because we talk about trying to attract new businesses there, certainly doesn't mean that we have any intention of doing away with what we love about our township. And I don't think that the two can't go hand in hand. I certainly think that we can work to rejuvenate and help our local our current businesses thrive. By all means, work with, you know, perhaps certain committees, or I talked about potentially a downtown manager who can work with realtors to bring and attract new businesses to town. And I think all those businesses would want to be involved in what makes Basking Ridge or Bernards Township so great, is the charm and the feel of the town. So I think we can do both at the same time. To assist local businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19, how do you feel about closing streets and using sidewalks for outside dining and shopping? I think that's a wonderful idea. You know, as Sophia said early on, the small businesses and the businesses in town have been absolutely devastated by COVID-19. And as things slowly start to open up, there are restrictions in place that make it difficult for people to shop in the stores. And some people just don't want to shop in the stores. And so some people don't want to eat in restaurants, even when that option is available to us. So I am 100% in favor of closing streets. Let's bring tables onto the streets. Let's allow some of our retailers to have some clothing racks or put their wares out on the streets and allow people to shop that way. They're outside, they can keep a safe social distance. It'll attract people to the stores that might not otherwise have gone to the stores. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I would support it wholeheartedly.
I agree with John totally. I would definitely support that. I think that's something that people want and they need, and the businesses certainly need that as well. And now with the warmer weather, I think that'd be a wonderful thing. And like John said, we could do outdoor dining. In addition, we can do outdoor shopping. We could perhaps even have an open mic night. There are a lot of different creative things that we can do. And I think that's just another way for us to bring our community together and support our small businesses. If you get elected, how is your leadership going to be any different from the committee members who are already in office? Well, as far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of anyone on the committee that owns a small business in town. So that's the first thing. In addition to that, I have a science background as a doctor. So I am used to evidence-based research and bringing evidence-based decisions to the township committee would be something that I would do rather than just doing things because they've always been done that way or they feel good. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the science and see, and the studies really, and that whatever decisions we make can really be supported by evidence-based data. So that's the first thing. As far as owning a business, I think that provides a lot of skills that would be really beneficial to the township committee. It's a whole different skill set. It's managing people, dealing with employees, insurance companies, accounts receivable, accounts payable, insurances. There are a plethora of skill sets that you need as a business owner. So I think that the combination of science and business is something unique to the township committee. And I'll let John continue.
Thank you. You know, obviously there are other attorneys on the township committee presently, including John Harris. But I do think that I am really a problem solver. I tend to see the big picture. And I think that I will bring a certain level of diligence and productivity to the township committee that maybe hasn't always been there when it should be. I think, you have to be versatile when you're sitting in the governing body, and you have to really have an understanding of what the goals of the residents are and the community is. And you have to be able to think proactively and diligently and sometimes creatively about how we can best achieve those goals. And it's that sort of thinking, that sort of problem solving, and that sort of diligence that I think I could bring to the township committee to help move Bernards Township forward and help it thrive for a very, very long time. And that sort of thinking combined with Sophia's sort of scientific, fact-based, science-based, evidence-based approach, I think that would make a really good team and a really good addition to the township committee. Is my personal information at risk from the cybersecurity leak at the township? And what are you going to do to make sure that never happens again? That's a very good question. A lot of people have asked it. And sadly, and one of the biggest problems is I don't think we really know. We've been told time and time and time again what wasn't compromised. We haven't been told what was. I understand that our network security was an issue that was raised sometime in the past, maybe a year or more ago. And it was an issue that was tabled by the township, by the committee for one reason or another. It was put off for another day, and that left us vulnerable. And sadly, I'm not entirely convinced that our vulnerabilities have been cured. So is our personal information at risk? I hope not. I hope that the township committee will be more transparent with us in terms of what it is that was compromised and the proactive steps they're taking to make sure this never happens again. And what would I do if I was on the township committee? Well, I think you invest in your network and you invest in your technology, because doing so is really tantamount to protecting your residents and their personal information. And as the township committee, that is your obligation, is to make sure that your residents are safe and that their information is protected.
I agree with you, John. It's unfortunate that on May 11th we were hacked. And if you go to the Bernards.org website, unfortunately, you will see at the top, on the bar on top, it says not secure. That to me is a little shocking that, living in this wonderful town, that our town website is not secure. I think that hopefully, our information was migrated to the cloud and went to backup servers. So I don't think that it's an issue. But I think looking forward, number one, we need to invest into our technology for our servers and our computers and websites, et cetera. But also we should look into hooking up, rather than having a local server. Let's look into hooking up with a bigger company, like, for example, Verizon, that have robust networks, so that we don't encounter this type of situation again. Because in a town like Bernards Township, I don't think this is acceptable at all.
I agree. I guess that was the last question we're going to handle for the evening. So I'd like to thank everyone very much for taking some time with us this evening. As I mentioned, we certainly plan on doing this again as a way to get our message out there and to interact with the residents of Bernards Township. So hopefully we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.